Kiwi Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Basically, this generation is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Wammo on Kiwi.
Yes, he is the man from publicaddress.net, the Hard News blog, also the Media 7 show on TVNZ7. There's Russell Brown. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning.
And of course, a lot of talk about this Under 500 business over the weekend and the chaos in Dunedin. What were your thoughts on what went down?
I don't know whether it's actually fair to put too much of the blame on the Canterbury students themselves who actually did the Under 500. They seem reasonably well organised, but what greeted them when they got down there to Dunedin was sadly predictable. But it just kind of it annoys me, and it really is hard not to agree with Police Minister Judith Collins that this is a bunch of privileged white kids who expect to, not have too many consequences from what they're doing and get on with their glorious careers eventually. It annoys me.
You were making the point in the blog yesterday that if this had happened somewhere else, say South Auckland, the consequences could be quite different.
Yeah, and when you look at the leeway that's been given to these students in the past, when this has happened in past years, a poor brown kid in South Auckland doesn't get that leeway, frankly. And it just kind of annoyed me when you started to see on the news some of these kids, but this might affect our career. Well, yeah, you should have thought about that. I mean, I'm not in the camp that, thinks that the book should be thrown at them, and really I'm not, I wouldn't be that bothered if they got diversion on the same basis as anyone else, any other young person who got in trouble with the law. But you do kind of get the sense that there's a slight sense of entitlement amongst these people, and they have behaved horribly towards the community they live in.
Yeah. There seems to be this expectation for the students that now go to Canterbury and Otago that this will happen every year, that there will be this event, and the next year's students will try and one up the previous years. Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of lame. These are the kind of people who do this sort of thing were never my people anyway, even when I was 18 or 20.
Yeah.
I had better ways to get in trouble with the police, frankly.
Right. So who cares then, really?
Yeah. I mean, it just you just look at some of those young people and you think, you idiots. You've got a community to live in. Why are you bothering doing this? But oh well.
But the other angle to this, and we were getting a few opinions on it yesterday, was that the media were focusing too heavily on it, and that's also the reason why it went down. If there's a burning couch, the media will, they'll have the cameras there, and therefore the riot will happen around it. Yeah,
sure. And it was. I mean, this stuff did happen in quite a concentrated area, but it's a pretty hard ask to ask the media to ignore 2 nights of rioting. In particular, I had a look at some of the stuff that the Otago Daily Times had on its website. It looked dangerous and chaotic. And I think, there certainly are some questions to be asked of the mayor and the local council, who have long treated students like they're the enemy, when in fact they should be grateful for the student presence, because Dunedin would be a pretty sad town without them. But, and apparently the mayor, Peter Chin, turned down the proposal from the Otago students of putting together a feelers concert to keep the students busy. To laugh, one of our readers observed that he'd rather be pepper sprayed.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then, Christ, surely you can amuse yourself without doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah. And what do you make of the other calls from, I guess it's from the older population? These students, they've got nothing to worry about these days. There's not enough to worry about. They need, back in my day, we had reasons to riot and reasons to march. Yeah. Well, there's sort of a point in that there's no apparent political content to what they're doing at all. So you haven't got that defence. What I had to laugh at, though, was Stephen Franks. What was he saying?
I'm not sure whether I can find it now. Had actually written a post saying, my daughter's going on the Indy 500, and, she hasn't been put... Oh, here we go, yes. I love the remnant New Zealand kids who defy the prune faces, clucking and sourness of our official culture to do what the best and most vital kids of every generation have done. Test their daring with feats that could kill them if they go wrong. And, that was all leading up to, my daughter and 11 other girls are going on the Indy 500, which he feared had been crushed by the police. That went up on September 12th, and has now disappeared from Stephen Franks' website, oddly enough.
Yeah, there you go.
Just leave it up there and defend it, for goodness sake.
Yeah, why not?
Really,
why not? All right, well, that was the Indy 500. Another big issue going at the moment, of course, the emissions trading scheme. You've been looking at the various political party responses to this. You're not too happy with the Māori Party on this one?
No. Well, they've completely gone against... They laid out these principles, and they appear to have completely ignored them. It's whatever's gone here is pretty bizarre, because it seems clear that Labour thought they were having good faith discussions with the government over this, and then pretty much hear through the media that it's all over and the Māori Party has done a deal. And the deal, I'm no expert in this, but I can understand enough of it to see that the deal the Māori Party has done basically loads a lot of polluter costs onto you and I, the taxpayers. So the Māori Party's deal has put us in the cart for, if you don't count agriculture, it's put us in the cart for nearly $500 million a year in perpetuity. And if you do count agriculture, it's over $1 billion a year.
And what was the alternative?
The alternative was to actually oblige the polluters to pay, which is the whole point of emissions trading schemes, is that you actually put a cost on carbon emissions, and that's the biggest incentive possible for these companies, for these operators to actually find better ways of operating.
So we're paying for the dairy farmers?
Yeah, we're subsidising... Yeah. How funny is this? We're subsidising agriculture. I really look forward to Roger Douglas having to vote for this. Because of the whole thing that we walked away from in the early 80s was agricultural subsidies, and that is effectively what we're going back to, which is really extraordinary.
So let's see where the battle lines are drawn. So this is not getting support from Labour.
No.
It's not getting support from the Greens.
No.
And it's not, obviously, won't get support from ACT.
Yeah, who knows what ACT will do?
We don't know. Yeah. But it is from... So they've got the Māori Party. So it's national and the Māori Party.
Yeah. So ACT may abstain or something, but so the government has the Māori Party, and that's what it needed. They've got United Future on board, I think, so...
Right.
But yeah, it seems like a very odd way of acting, because John Key very strongly gave the impression he was looking for something that was durable, that would survive any future change of government, and the obvious way to do that was the Grand Coalition, to have at the very least the two major parties agreeing on the way forward, and that all seemed to go out the window without warning, which is really odd.
As opposed to prior to the last election, there was a grand coalition of sorts when it came to the child discipline laws.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of been forgotten by Phil Goff in his speech on the weekend at the Labour Party conference.
Yeah, that was odd, because that was actually a good example of the two major parties coming to a reasonable accommodation. I kind of had some problems with Phil Goff's speech, repudiating light bulbs and shower heads and that sort of thing, and saying that's what we got wrong, because the light bulbs were setting efficiency standards for light bulbs is something that has been done in the US, throughout Europe. Australia was the first. It's not like some crazy, weird idea. And a lot of countries have gone further. The Americans have banned, basically, it's not fully enforced yet, but are banning incandescent bulbs. Yeah. All we were, preparing to do was to have a minimum efficiency standard.
So what was he apologising for, really?
I don't know. I thought it was odd because, he called it a sideshow. Basically, it was a perfectly sensible policy that they should have been able to sell better, as Jeanette Fitzsimons pointed out. The sideshow was what Jerry Brownlee whipped up around it, with the eager assistance of the likes of Ian Wishart, who, was spreading his usual scientific, So, well, how should we call it pseudoscience?
Yeah.
That oh my God, you break one of these and your children will be poisoned by mercury, and it wasn't true. But Brownlee was quite happy to encourage that kind of thing, and it's the kind of thing that's a lot harder to do when you actually are the Minister of Energy, because you are getting all the good advice, and you are actually obliged to act on that.
Yeah.
Whereas, in opposition, you can kind of say what you want. And Jeanette Fitzsimons has actually said that she spoke to senior National Party politicians when they were in opposition, who knew very well that what they were doing was bollocks, but could see that Labour was vulnerable on it, and really didn't have much of a message to give back. And it did actually work for them. It helped cultivate that nanny state thing. But, yeah.
And unfortunately, that's politics.
Yeah, exactly. It is, sadly.
Thanks, Russell.
Righto.
Cheers.
See ya.
Russell Brown at publicaddress.net, Media 7 show.